All right, guys. Of course, we're going to deep dive a little bit later and go around the metro with some rapid fire where we're going to talk about why one league wants to go over the pond and kind of look to the future and why one league kind of wants to take a step back into the past. But first, we're going to deep dive into the Falcons. We know that it's kind of disappointing to see what happened this past weekend because we all felt like the Commanders was definitely a winnable game for the Falcons, but it was a tale of two everythings, if you will. It's like a tale of two defenses because the defense you saw in the first half was not the defense you saw in the second half, in that if you take the 7 points away, that defense really held the Commanders scoreless. And then you look at Desmond Ridder, and it was kind of I don't even want to say the tale of two halves. It might be the tale of 2.5 quarters and the tale of a quarter and some change for Desmond Ridder. But I think the good thing about the defense is you always see them trending up each and every game, even if they have a slow start. So it's always an upward trend. But where it was with Desmond Ridder, it's kind of up, down. And unfortunately, this was a down where we saw a weekend of 300 plus yards 2 Sundays ago as a win. Best game ever. This past weekend, another 300 plus yard game, probably the worst game ever. So he's probably somewhere in the middle of the best game and the worst game. But that said, given how he's played these last couple of games, what do you feel, Reggie, is the most important thing for him, just in terms of playing well on the road, where, of course, he has had most of his success at home, but also because this is such a critical game with a divisional opponent in the Bucs?
Well, I think he needs to do what they brought him in for last season, right? Marcus Mariota last season was a guy that could do things at times, but decided to be a hero in moments. And every time he decided to be a hero, he messed stuff up, right? And for a long time, you had Desmond Ridder in there because you knew he wouldn't try and be a hero, right? At the time, he was a rookie. He's learned the offense. They made the play calling very easy for him, so he's able to move the ball down the field whenever he could. And he wasn't making mistakes. He wasn't just throwing the ball into traffic. Unfortunately, after what was a great week 2 weeks ago, this week he decided to be a little bit of a hero. And it's not all on him either. The play calling obviously changed a little bit. They weren't able to get the ball running, so let's have him just throw it 47 times, which he's never done in his career until Sunday. So I think it's a mix, right? I think he just needs to learn over repetition. At the end of the day, if there's a play not there, don't throw it into the back, like throw it out of the back of the end zone if the situation presents itself. What are you doing trying to make a play when you don't have that ability, right? You're not Patrick Mahomes. You're not Jalen. You're not any of these top level quarterbacks.
Yeah.
So stay in your lane. Make sure you just handle what you need to handle. And as you get better, maybe we open things up a little bit more for you. But he's not at that point yet. He needs to just chill out.
Yeah, I would agree. Jarvis, what do you think about just how important this game is, of course, for the Falcons, because it could give them the opportunity to have sole possession of first place in the division, but also important for Dez because let's face it, we've now gotten through a third of the season and things are really starting to tighten up in what is needed or expected under center.
The bottom line is that the offensive line has to play better. They have to help the quarterback out because you can't. The man has thrown 84 passes in the last 2 games. There's no way the Falcons can win games like that. I'm sorry. Like, there's no way. I understand coach talking about having 5-man fronts and all that stuff and taking advantage of a weaker secondary in the Washington Commanders. But at the end of the day, you got to do what you do. And that's everybody in the National Football League knows that Arthur Smith wants to run the football. So 8-man fronts shouldn't be this big thing now. Like, I'm trying to figure out like why is everybody going crazy? Because we saw this last year.
Yeah. And
they were the third best rushing team in the league last year. The difference is between last year and this year is the offensive line. Those guys aren't. It's just minute breakdowns on that offensive line. If you just going back and looking at the film, it's just like, okay, Drew Dahlman might be able to stay on this guy, but he's not able to get up to the second level. And Chris Lindstrom isn't able to pick up his guy. It's just little things just like that. Or Chris Lindstrom allows the guy to do an immediate swim move to get immediate penetration on the outside zone play. You just can't let that stuff happen. Like that. That's your man. That's the guy that immediately affected your zone. So you got to pick that up and somehow. So just so many little things that has happened this year that hasn't allowed the Falcons to do what they do. And I think that in order for that to happen, in order for them to get this win and help Desmond Ridder out, because like I said, you can't continue to go down this road because this is going to be a rabbit hole. If they're throwing the ball 35 plus times a game, like the Falcons are going to be at the bottom of the division before we know it. And I think that it starts with the offensive line if those guys getting their stuff together, because it's just been little things that had just been continue to just mess plays up. And that's not going to work out. That's not going to bode well for Desmond Ridder going forward.
And Maria, looking at expanding on that, not being just about Des Ridder, to Jarvis's point, it's an important game for just about everybody, because I think last week, for lack of a better term, other than maybe one or two players, just about everybody could have had a better game, if we're being honest. So how do you see it, Maria, in terms of knowing that this is an important game, knowing that, yes, we need to see something more out of Des Ridder, but what do you think when you're looking at this team as a whole, you need to see in order to say, hey, yeah, this team has every opportunity to win this game in Tampa?
Well, everybody knows that I always say this about quarterbacks. You know, when things are going great, it's all because of the quarterback. When things are going wrong, it's all because of the quarterback. It's part of the position. And Desmond understands that. And he even said that on Wednesday, that he understands that that's the job, that's the role that he's in. And for me, obviously, I want to see him not turn the ball over. And no, not all 3 of those interceptions were his fault, and really not all 5 in the last 2 weeks. But the problem is, it's not just him. It's not just the offensive line. There is blame to go around literally everybody. And look, we knew this team and Arthur Smith loves to run the football. But what it's telling you is that you didn't get all these playmakers around him to not throw the ball, right? So they are going to open up the pass game. They are going to put more on Desmond to throw the football. And he's going to have to learn really quickly. He is the starting quarterback. They have put a lot into him being the starting quarterback. I do anticipate him being that for the foreseeable future. Yeah. And he said something really interesting on Wednesday too. He's talking about miscommunication and how that hasn't been an issue for this offense until this past week. And I said, okay, well, where is this miscommunication coming from? What is it? I was asking guys around the locker room that, and they said they didn't really know. They couldn't exactly pinpoint it, but what they did know was that things were getting hurried up a little bit. That goes back to the offensive line. So it's causing Des to panic a little bit. And he even said, going back to Reggie's point a little bit, trying to be the hero, he gets in his head sometimes when things are quick and they're elevated, which granted, if you're a quarterback in the NFL, everything is a split-second decision. But when things are elevated and you have to move quicker, he starts to panic. So he said, I have to understand that I need to just dial it back, calm down a little bit. So I think him knowing that going into Tampa, we know how difficult they are defensively. They're going to give him some issues, I think, and they're going to try to get in his face. But he hasn't gotten sacked a ton, which is great. That's great. They're giving him time. They're giving him time to learn back there, but not enough time. He's got to be good and got to be good really quick. So don't turn the ball over. I mean, they are right there. And the most frustrating thing is when they're in the red zone, when they're down there, they're driving the field and they can't score. And that was one of my biggest questions to all those offensive guys. How frustrating is it when you know that you're literally right there and can't score? And they said that's the thing. We just have to capitalize on those opportunities because they haven't in the last 2 games, really last 3 games. So I think if they do that, don't turn the ball over. Des will be fine. It's just he's having to learn very quickly, and there's a lot of pressure on him, obviously. So I think this could be, I don't want to say a make or break game for Desmond, but it's incredibly important. You have a chance to make a statement and take the NFC South.
Yeah, and I think, Maria, to go with your make or break, it's not make or break as in it's Heineke time, not that kind of make or break, but it's more of a make or break of this team, offense and defense, spoke a lot over the offseason and during training camp about their support. We're behind Des. We believe in him 100%. You just don't want that to start waning, and then that begins to show itself on the field. And one more thing before we wrap up that kind of came to mind for me, and it's interesting because I didn't get out there to Flowery Branch this week, but one of my buddies asked the question of Arthur Smith that I had, which is, okay, not saying that Des is Jalen Hurts. We're not saying that he's Justin Fields, but there were moments in time where those guys and their OCs and their coaches said, hey, why don't we actually put some run design plays in for the quarterback? Why don't we put some RPOs in? And the few times that they've actually done that for Des Ridder, it has worked. So that might be something that gives an opportunity to have the ball in his hand, but not necessarily have to toss it down the field. And then, of course, I think this week we'll have an opportunity to see just how important that acquisition of Van Jefferson is going to be in order to spread out this offense. Now, when we come back, guys, we're going to talk a little bit about some things that are going on, maybe across the pond, maybe staying over here and changing up. But before we go around the metro and have a little fun with what's going on in and around the world of sports, Jarvis is going to tell you guys about FanDuel, how you can make some extra bucks. But also, if you really like Jarvis like that, he'll tell you how you're able to get more Jarvis with Subtech.
Join the Locked On Sports Atlanta Insiders, where you get breaking news, the inside scoop, and exclusive content delivered directly to your phone. Plus, you get a one-on-one conversation with your boy, me. Yes, one-on-one with Jarvis. Yes, I'm telling you, one-on-one with me. And for all the people that join, I got a special thing for you. All 22 review, I'm telling you, you don't want to miss it. I'm giving you all the insight so you can be a part of the Locked On Sports Atlanta Insider. Sound like a good deal? Go to joinsubtext.com/LockedOnSportsAtlanta. That's joinsubtext.com/LockedOnSportsAtlanta and become a Locked On Sports Atlanta Insider today.